The Scout Guide is a city guide dedicated to supporting local business here in West Texas. Welcome to Inside the Scout Guide, West Texas, a brief look into a few of the exceptional businesses right here in Midland and the entrepreneurs who lead those businesses. I'm your host, Jay Whitlow, and today I'm pleased to welcome into the second story studio from Mesa Pointe Wealth, Robert Lehrer. Robert, welcome to the Catwalk.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, we are so glad you're here. You know, when I first heard about you from Claire at the Scout Guide, she said you guys will hit it off real well. And so I started looking at your bio. I met you at the Scout Guide launch.
Yes.
And I noticed some things that we do have in common, some things we don't. One is we don't have much hair on the top of our head.
That's right.
Right? We have cool specs.
Yes.
You went to A&M. I went to Tech.
Okay.
Right? So we're different there. But one thing I noticed was you, at some point in your life, taught Sunday school.
I did.
And you taught 5 and 6 year olds.
Long time. Yes, sir.
That is totally opposite of me. So tell me a little bit about why did you teach 5 and 6 year olds?
Well, I've off and on for maybe 30, 40 years, but recently spent a number of years at Stonegate, and I was working in the college ministry. And they moved the night that we were having our time, and it didn't work. I couldn't use that night. And so I asked them what would be something similar that I could do, and so it was 5 and 6 year olds, and so and pretty much the same mentality as the college age kids, and so I moved over there. And the funny thing is, that was probably 15 years ago at Stonegate that I moved over, and that's where I met Liz, my wife. She was teaching. We were both in pre-K at the time, so 5-year-olds, and so that's where we met 14, 15 years ago. And
well, before we jump into your business,
yes, sir.
I want to know a little bit about you. So give us a real short bio background, maybe where you're from, how you got to Midland.
It's we'll keep it really short. And I like I've told you before, I call that my past life. And went to Texas A&M back in the late 80s, finished in the late 80s, and bounced around in agriculture. I loaned money on cattle for 15 plus years, had my own cattle operations, and roughly around 2006, 18, 19, 20 years ago, it all just sort of imploded, and found myself in a place that I needed to move on, and just Midland, Texas kept coming back, and it was a spot that I think God provided, didn't send me, but just provided a way out, and so that got me to Midland in January of 2007. And it's
well, we moved here in 2007, so that's another thing that we have in common. Mesa Pointe Wealth.
Yes,
the name of the business. What does that mean? Where did you get that name? Where did that name come from?
The name just really it was trying to choose names in trying to name your business in the financial industry. You've got to be fairly careful in what kind of marketability you've got, what kind of sellability later on maybe that you want to keep in mind. And every name that we came up with was being used somewhere in the country. And the attorneys that we were using to start the business just kept throwing stuff out. And so one of them mentioned, let's do 2 names, and then that way it'd be a little easier. So I started to think of 2 name companies around Midland, and most of them had to do with desert or with the environment that we were in, the area that we were in. And so we've got mesas right to the north of us and to the west of us, and so we just evolved into Mesa Pointe.
Mesa Pointe. How long has Mesa Pointe Wealth been in existence?
We started technically July 15th of 2022. It's when
so post-COVID.
Oh yes, post-COVID, and so it was something that had been in the works off and on for 4 or 5 years before that, but just to move in the advisory business, in the financial advisory business, is easier said than done, and so you've got to be very diligent but very strategic about it. Right. And so it took us a while to get it going, and then once you do, it's not let's sort of walk into it slowly. It's a singular day event that happens.
Wow. Did COVID have anything to do with launching the business?
It really didn't. COVID had more to do with just for a lot of people, even who they are as people, and how we want to live life. And so I think it changed everybody in that way. And so eventually, the idea, I guess you could say, evolved on how I wanted to do business. And then there were other factors as far as getting the business started and why to move on with being on your own in the business.
So what exactly led you or inspired you to launch the business? Was there one specific thing you said, this is why I'm going to do?
Not really. It was more of just a trend from the previous business I was in, not having really any autonomy and not having a personality in your business. And so there were a lot of things I wanted to accomplish. There was a lot of things I was learning as a person that I thought would be good to implement into the business and was not allowed to. And so there's a lot of things we want to do with clients that are a lot more personal. You know, in our business, it's people think it's all about investing, and that's a very small part of it. It's more about legacy. It's more about taking care of people's, really getting them to accomplish the dreams that they think they have. And so going back, thinking about, going back to COVID and a lot of the things that people got from that was that life is short, and we want to do things that are fulfilling. And so the business is really designed on, can we be very personal with our clients? Can we meet them where they are, and in a very ethical and legal way, but still help them really build legacies that they're looking for?
You know, when growing up, never really been a saver so much, and it took some circumstances in my life to kind of cause me to step back and look at what saving would look like, kids, different things, career changes and stuff. What's the advice you give to somebody? Is there an age that you say you've got to start at that age to start saving? Or what do you say to somebody like me in their 50s who has not saved? Where do you put that balance?
Well, I think a lot of it is, I mean, obviously, the earlier you get started, the better off you are. But you got to take people where they are in life. And I put a lot more weight on giving than I do on saving, because you don't understand what wealth truly is until you learn to give it away. And you especially learn that in Midland, Texas, because we see people, I call it fist in the jar. They'll hang on to anything and not understand how it's really hurting them. And so the older people are and the less they've saved, you go back the other way and say, okay, how are we living our life? Are we living beyond our means? Do we know what generosity is? Do we know what service is? Do we know what community is? And get people to get in their space. Then we start to set goals on what does it look like to build a retirement. And so even in your 50s, it's doable, but we've got to be realistic on what is wealth for that particular person.
Now, you have not been in the Mesa Pointe space for very long, since 2022?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So since a couple of years now, what's been the proudest moment or the most exciting thing that you've seen happen in someone's life?
I think where we get true satisfaction is when not at any age, not any specific person, but they have the aha moment that we can make and I call them dreams, because a lot of people say, well, what are your goals? Goals are a lot more concrete. Most people talk in dreams, where they're a little more grandiose than probably what they need to be, but it's still a dream. And when we can connect what they do on a day-to-day basis and how they can, they get a paycheck, they put money in savings. When we could connect that to the dream of owning a nice home, the dream of owning your own business, the dream of retiring, if we can connect those two and they realize all they've got to do is be diligent on a day-to-day basis, there's an aha moment that happens. That's satisfying because they walk out, they're relieved. They still know they have work to do, but at least maybe you've got them on the right path. And that's, for me, that's success with clients.
I'm interested in that comment about giving more than the saving piece. So a little bit later, I want to circle back to that about giving and about your work in the community.
Yes.
But I want to focus on this because in the space of wealth and money management, what are the risks? What are some of the uncertainties that you face as a business owner or that the clients face?
I think a lot of risk is clients not sticking to their plan is probably the biggest risk. And you know, for most people in our business, it's really quite simple. If you put the correct amount of money in that it's been designed for you to do, and you do that over and over for a number of years, you're going to build wealth. It's pretty simple. If you put that kind of investment into your business and you work hard, you're going to build wealth. The key is, can you do the day-to-day, every day for a number of years? It's all about longevity and being consistent, and that's where people fail, is they don't stay consistent with their thought processes. They don't stay consistent with their contributions. They don't stay consistent with the way they live. They get off on a tangent, and all of a sudden they've got to buy a new car that they really don't need, or that the house needs to be bigger. They need to get further north in the community. You know, there's all the different things that they get away from the plan, and the plan wasn't exciting enough. It got boring, and boring is good in this business. But when that goes awry and then some time goes by, you realize we actually went backwards and not forwards. And so success for a client is just being consistent. That's all it is.
You know, I remember growing up, keep up with the Joneses was like the statement. Can you expound a little bit on that success piece that you're talking about? You mentioned the word boring. I've not heard that before. Can you unpack that a little bit more, what you mean by that?
Well, success in any endeavor is the day-to-day practice of whatever you're doing. And so if it's going to build wealth, it's the day-to-day of building your business. It's the day-to-day of putting money back or not spending. Every day you don't spend, you stay wealthier. Every day you do spend, you get a little less wealthier. It's pretty simple. Same thing with building a business. Every day you go to work early and you do the things that make more sales, you build wealth. And so that kind of consistency is what gets lost because it's the day-to-day, and that's the boredom part of it. And so we get off on these tangents that we need a new car. We need a big trip. It's going to be exciting to take all the kids and all the grand trips on a $100,000 trip that you're pulling out of your retirement to do. All these mistakes I've seen virtually on an annual basis because we need some of that excitement. But what are we really going after? You know, what are we, you know, what's the big dream? And we lose focus on the big dream because what gets us there is pretty simple.
That's interesting. I'm already learning a lot now because I've always had misconceptions about sitting with a financial advisor or a wealth manager. You know, I'm like, well, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have the big dollars and stuff. But what I'm hearing is it doesn't matter where you are in the road, as long as you're consistent, as long as you do some things that are practical planning, that you can move forward, and that giving is extremely important.
Yes.
So what are some practices that you do? I know earlier you said off air you were a reader. And we're definitely not the same in that aspect. What are some practices that you do daily that help you become a good leader?
A good leader. Okay. There's some things in my day, and I ask people a lot. I ask older men this a lot. What are the things in your day that are non-negotiable? And so my alarm goes off at 4:30. Virtually every day. There'll be a day I'll click it off and decide I'm going to sleep in. But I'm up at 4:45. I'm sitting and drinking coffee and reading something by 5 o'clock. And that is a non-negotiable. But in that, there's peace. And whenever we can, in America, and especially in Midland, Texas, when we can find peace in our day, you stick to that. Again, it might get boring, but that's what builds over time. And so that non-negotiable of having a consistent morning, and so reading by 5, typically working out by 6:30, typically in the office, hopefully by 8:30, and you have that structure, then that's what that builds that consistency, that builds those steps, that build leadership, builds wealth, builds legacy, whatever you want.
You're a reader. Who are you reading?
Right now, I'm reading several things. A shout out to Andy Deck. Right now, I'm almost finished with his book.
Yeah.
One of our locals, and then I'm reading John Mark Comer, "Live No Lies," which is a really good book. I'm reading in 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 10 was today. Psalms 12 was today. I've got a few other small books that are they're what we call the mystics. They're ancient saints that wrote in the 5th, 6th, 7th century, and so I'll read some of that. And then I'll read a little bit of Jack Carr that's got the Terminalist series, and so mostly what I'm going to read is something that'll make me a better human being, stronger Christian. And then there's some stuff that I'll read just to get my mind going somewhere else.
I got to ask you, how does faith play a role in your business?
Faith, hopefully my business follows my faith. So the business can fall away. Virtually anything I do in life can fall away. My faith is who I am. And so at 59, my goal is to grow to where everything I do revolves around the practices I believe that Jesus told us to have. And so that as I go through my 60s coming up and my 70s, I get better at reading Scripture. I get better at praying. I get better at fasting. I get better with community and being around people. I get better at servicing. I get better with generosity. And so my faith is who I am. And so Mesa Pointe is what I do that provides God's provision to me and to my clients and to those that we give. And so that's my faith is who I am.
I appreciate you sharing that. How do you balance work? You talk about getting up early, so you work hard, put in a full day, but you're married, you've got family, you've got other stuff going on. I'm sure you've got hobbies and interests. How do you balance all of that?
I think you stay structured. I think you stay structured so when you get pulled away for different things that you know where you are in your day. You know what has happened and what needs to happen still. My wife and I typically 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, somewhere in the afternoon, we just spend time there till about 7 in the kitchen. We eat in the kitchen and just chill and visit and catch up and you know, what were the frustrations of the day? What were the successes of the day? And that's one of those virtually non-negotiables for us. The flow goes pretty good. And so, but to me, the more structured I stay, the better I'm able to deal with those things that come off to the side. And so I dabble in hobbies. I don't have a strong hobby. So I'll do one thing for a little bit and something else for a little bit and then go back to something. And so I just, again, that part I get bored with. And so, but it doesn't matter. It's a hobby.
Right.
And so, but for the most part, it's structure, and that keeps you sort of lined up.
What's the long-term vision for your business?
That's a great question.
What do you see it in, say, the next 3 to 5 years or even longer?
I think it needs to. I don't see me doing anything else. I don't know if I'd be good at anything else. And so this business, to do what we want it to do, needs to be a long-term business. Maybe 5 years we've really gotten traction and really gotten some speed. My hope is, truthfully, and I don't talk about it very often, that, most all of us in this business look for a way to exit so we can so-called enjoy life. But I enjoy this. And so the business will always be something that will probably be sellable, but I think it sure would be nice that at some point in time it's just turned over to the next generation and I just walk away or hobble away or get wheeled away or something.
Tell me about your staff. How many staff do you employ?
I have 2 millennial redheads that just keep me ducking. And so, no, I have a great staff. I have 2 young ladies that one is operations, one is client experience, and we work well together. We all have a strong faith. We're without one right now who just had a little girl a little over a week ago, Olivia Wren Fielding, and so shout out to Olivia Wren. I'm sure she's listening. And
she'll see this one day.
One day. And so the one thing I'm blessed with is we have a staff that we get along in a way that we can challenge each other and nobody gets their feelings hurt. I'm a big believer if you're going to have people employed with you, you need to give them ownership. And so in a book I read a while back that it was essentially don't care too much about everybody's little business. Just let them be their own self. Let them work, and if it's their position, let them have it. And so they will hear me say a lot of times with a question they'll ask, I don't care. It's your job. You go do it the best you can, and I'm good. And so they respond well to that. And so I'm having a good time. I hope they're not bored with me and so, but I think it's a good environment.
Right. What would you say your leadership style is like?
Mine is allowing people to go as fast as they want to go, give them as much rope as they want to have, paying them for accomplishment. I am not a big believer of paying people by the hour. We need that. We need that bottom support. We need that floor. But at the same time, I love to reward people. I think if they are highly successful in what they do, give them bars to jump over, and when they do, then reward them as best you can, and then keep finding other rewards. And so people want to accomplish. It's in our nature. We want to win, and we want to be successful, but we need to have some reward for going above and beyond. And we need to know that.
Talk about setbacks. Have you had any? I know you talked a little bit about past life, and I don't want to go down that road. I want to try to stay geared toward Mesa Pointe. Have you had any setbacks? Has the economy, has things in the world that's happened, has that given you any setbacks, or has Midland caused anything? Have you seen any negativity or anything that you would say, I need to do this better or I need to do this differently?
Yeah, I think negativity is something you take on based on how you view life around you. And so there's setbacks that we have, but you need to expect the setbacks in order to go forward. I heard a great talk one time from a young lady that was, she led the first all-female expedition up Mount Everest, and she walked us through their day-to-day on how they were going to make their final ascent. And this was a 2-month process of going from one camp to the next camp and then going back down. And it always seemed like a setback, but that's how you had to acclimate. And so I took that to heart to mean that, we may go down a path and use one operating system and it just doesn't work. And we've paid for it, and it wasn't cheap, and we've used it for a year and it's not working, and we have to scrap that and find something better. But we're getting better at what we do. And so that goes back to that longevity of the business, that this thing's not going to be built overnight. Really good success and really peaceful success is not built overnight. So I look at it as we've learned from it, we wrote it off our taxes, and we're going to move on. And so setbacks are just how we view a lot of things. And so when the market goes down, it's a great time to buy. When inflation and interest rates go up, it's a great time to save and make more money on interest. There's always a positive in the things that are going on around us.
That's good. That's good. I appreciate you sharing that. I want to circle back. We mentioned earlier you about giving more than saving. I know you're a big advocate for nonprofits and community service. Could you share a little bit about where maybe you are serving, maybe where Mesa Pointe is headed toward being involved in the community?
Yeah, my wife and I have spent a lot of years serving in the community, and she still does. She is full speed. I'm more with the business right now. We do a lot of gifting. The time in the business right now is a little overwhelming, and so I don't spend a whole lot of time serving outside. So right now we put a lot more emphasis on gifting, and that's Mesa Pointe. That's just not my wife and I. Mesa Pointe, we're working on an extremely high percentage of our gross income, gross commissions, going to local and international missions. And I believe that's, if you don't practice what you preach, and practice it to the extreme, then you're not gonna be much of a teacher about it.
Yeah, I know you have worked with Breaking Bread.
Yes.
Some others locally. What does that do for you? How does that encourage you when you come back from an opportunity to serve?
I think if we take it right, when we go to serve, we need to walk away with the perspective of who we are and how micro we are in the whole scheme of life, and insignificant, replaceable. I mean, and that needs to be. We need to walk away with knowing that's who we really are. That when we pass away, our great-grandchildren won't know us. Hopefully our grandchildren were fond of us, but that'll fade as well. And so we need to it gives us a perspective. If we truly go and serve and not go for a photo op and not go for an online post, and we walk away, we realize who we are in this world and that how well we're doing in this world compared to just people that live around the corner from us.
I know we're on this podcast. That's a digital space. I don't know if you use social media, but how do you educate clients or even the city of Midland? How do you let people know who you are and what you're doing? How do you educate maybe your clients? That's
a good question, because I'm not good on social media. It's something that I really stay away from. But that's why you hire millennials. And that's why you allow
redhead millennials.
Yeah, redhead millennials. Yeah, and so, but that's why you let kids that have grown up in it take it over. And so, my favorite way that we get word around is word of mouth, testimonials, finding people that you've helped, you've worked with, you've done it in a way that as soon as they have a trigger, they are sharing who you are. To me, that's the best form of advertising or marketing that you're going to find. You know, we're going to use social media. We're going to use a little bit of print. We're going to use a little bit of face-to-face networking. But the best, bar none, I think, is the testimony of your current clients.
I love that. I appreciate your time. I want to kind of wrap things up with one more question. The episode purpose is because of the Scout Guide, right? Scout Guide West Texas. We met at the launch event out at the Summit Center. It was a great event. We had a chance to talk a little bit. I know this is your guys' first time in one of the volumes.
Yes.
So you don't have the track record of what's happened, but what do you hope being in the Scout Guide brings? Visibility, brings more clients. What do you hope to gain from being in the Scout Guide?
Well, our hope is that it connects us with the demographic that we're trying to reach now. You know, for years, and most advisory firms in the country are looking for the high net worth client. And we have those clients, and we're still going to we love to work with them. We're still going to take care of them. But I believe the future is the Y's and the Z's. And my hope is the Scout Guide introduces us to that group, and that they can learn that even though we might be your father's advisor, that we understand what needs to take place for you to reach those dreams, for you to understand how to get from point A to point B and get to where your parents are. And so my hope is the Scout Guide is an introduction into that demographic and into those, I hate to say kids, but they're my kids' age. And so it introduce us to those kids so that we have a chance and an opportunity to help them like we've helped the older generation.
So those kids, you say, they might be a young entrepreneur.
Oh, yes.
Give us, as we end the episode, what's that one thing you would share, that one encouragement to that one young entrepreneur that you would say, this is my legacy to leave to you?
So many people want to be an entrepreneur. So many people want to be their own boss, own their own business. But most people don't understand the gravity of it and how you have to sacrifice your time, your energy, your effort, your money. You have to sacrifice everything about yourself. And there is nothing you get to save and set aside. And so if you don't have a paycheck, that's fine. If you have to pour your savings into it, that's fine. If you have to stay up after you put the kids to bed and you stay up till 2 in the morning, that's fine. We don't understand a lot of times the amount that we have to give to get a business. Some people can do it, and it's easy as can be. They happen to get into a niche. They found a space that it takes off. Most businesses in America fail in 3 years. And most of the time, it's because that diligence wasn't there, that sacrifice and that all input wasn't there. So my one piece of advice is sacrifice doesn't stop. It's everything you have goes into it if you want to make it.
I appreciate that. Great wisdom. Thank you. Thank you for the friendship. Thank you for the business wisdom that you're giving us. Thanks for your time being here. That'll do it for us on this episode of Inside the Scout Guide. Big thanks to Chris producing, Second Story for the studio space, to Claire Ramirez for her leadership with the Scout Guide. Like, share, and subscribe. And thank you again for joining with us on Inside the Scout Guide, West Texas.